It is 8:30 committee, so we shall get started with our committee meeting for the day. We do have at least one member that will be on WebEx this morning, Senator Kirshen. And so, Senator Kirshen, if you have a question, I don't know how you raise your hand, but our staff will let us know if you do have a question. To begin with, we will have a request for bill introductions. Committee, do you have requests for bill introductions? Seeing none, I did receive a request, and I said I would introduce this bill. It is 24 RS 2729, and what the bill would do, when you see it, it's very interesting. It's like two sentences, but it would remove the eminent domain authority from the Secretary of Wildlife and Parks. Is there questions? Is there objection to introduction of the bill? Seeing none, the bill will be introduced. Are there bill requests from the audience? Seeing none, we'll get right into our agenda. We do have budget hearings this morning. As a matter of fact, committee, all week we have budget hearings, so we will be investing a fair amount of time looking at agency budgets, looking to see where we might be able to save taxpayers some money. At least I know that's always my focus. Our first one up today is the Kansas State Fair, and we will hear from our fiscal analyst, Mr. Luke Drury.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Luke Drury, and I'm a senior fiscal analyst with the Kansas Legislative Research Department, and I will be going through the Kansas State Fair's budget request with you all. Brian Schultz, the general manager of the State Fair, is in the audience today, and he will be able to address the committee and answer any questions that you all may have as well after my presentation.
You made it sound like you're not able to answer any questions for us.
Mr. Chair, I will do the absolute best that I can to answer the questions the committee may have.
But I appreciate that. It is the agency's responsibility to speak for themselves. You just presenting the draft. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Beginning on page 1 is a table overview of overall look at the State Fair. The mission of the State Fair is to promote and showcase Kansas agriculture, industry, and culture, and create opportunity for commercial activity and provide an educational and entertaining experience that is the pride of all Kansans. When we turn over to page 6, I will begin there. Beginning on page 6 is a look at the State Fair Fee Fund. The State Fair Fee Fund has experienced lower revenues and expenditures in FY 2021 due to the cancellation of the 2020 State Fair event. In 2022, reappropriated SGF monies were available for the use of operations, decreasing the amount expended from the State Fair Fee Fund. Those SGF monies were not available in 2023, which increased expenditures from the State Fair Fee Fund, and in FY 2024 and for FY 2025, expenditures and revenues from the State Fair Fee Fund are estimated to normalize. As you can see from the table up at the top, the left side, or green, is revenues bars. The right side, or red, are expenditures. And from 2021, you see those revenues and expenditures were down because of the cancellation. And then you see, as the graph continues on, we will expect to see more normalized revenues and expenditures starting in this current fiscal year and then in 2025. We turn over to page 7 is a look at the FY 2024 analysis of the budget. So the table at the top is numbered on the left side 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that corresponds with the narratives underneath, so a blurb about what these different numbers represent. Subsequent to the 2023 session, one adjustment was made to the $7.9 million, including $135,000 State General Fund appropriated to the State Fair in 2024. And that is item number 1, SGF reappropriations. $12.9 million of unspent SGF monies was shifted from FY 2023 to FY 2024 Specifically, this is $9.9 million for the Bison Arena renovation and $3 million for State Fair facility upgrades. These are capital improvement projects that were not spent in the current year or in 2023 and carried over into 2024. No legislative action is required for those monies to carry over. The agency has reappropriation authority in the appropriations bill. The agency submits a revised FY 2024 estimate of $22.3 million, including $13.8 million SGF. It's an all-funds increase of $1.5 million, or 7.4% above the agency's approved amount. The agency also requests 27 FTE positions, which is equal to the agency's approved number. The revised estimate does include $750,000 SGF for the following supplemental request. Item number 2, lighting upgrades. The agency requests $300,000 SGF to upgrade lighting on the state fairgrounds in 2024. The 2023 legislature had approved $600,000 from the ARPA, American Rescue Plan State Relief Fund, to install additional lighting and cameras on the grounds of the state fair. The agency's supplemental request would expand that project, adding more lighting to the fairgrounds above and beyond the $600,000 that was appropriated during the last legislative session. Item number 3, grounds, maintenance, and upgrades. The agency requests $250,000 SGF, and then turning over to page 8, to repair and replace HVAC systems located in the Sunflower North and Sunflower South buildings on the state fairgrounds in 2024. Item number 4, camera upgrades. The agency requests $100,000 SGF to upgrade cameras on the state fairgrounds in 2024. Again, the 2023 legislature did approve $600,000 ARPA for lighting and cameras. The agency's supplemental request for 2024 would expand that project, adding more cameras to the grounds of the state fair. Item number 5, administration building upgrades. The agency requests $100,000 SGF to upgrade the administration building located on the state fairgrounds in 2024. Funding would be used to replace carpet, reconfigure some office space, and create a secure information technology room. The information technology room is in relation to a recent security audit that recommended that the fair better secure IT equipment, and funding would help to address those concerns. Absent the supplemental request, the revised request also includes an increase of $790,000 roundabouts in base budget expenditures, with significant adjustments are as follows. Item number 6, the ARPA lights and cameras item. The 2023 legislature had recommended that $600,000 ARPA funds to install lights and cameras on the grounds of the state fair in 2023. At the time of the recommendation, though, it was unclear whether or not ARPA funds would be available to use for the project. So on June 15th of 2023, those funds were certified and transferred to the state fair. As you all know, the fiscal year does end on June 30th. Those monies were received by the state fair on June 15th, and so the state fair rolled those monies into their FY 2024 budget request. Item number 7, ARPA Emergency Command Center. The agency's request includes $250,000 in ARPA funding to purchase technology and equipment to facilitate the creation of an emergency operation center at the state fairgrounds in 2024. The ARPA funding was approved by the State Finance Council on December 21 of 2022 as part of the State Efficiency and Modernization Program. All other adjustments made by the agency total in a reduction of about $56,000. I call these the sort of rats and cats. The reduction is attributable to some reduced estimates for pay for regular, unclassified employees, and additionally, it is offset by some increased estimates for certain commodities, including materials and supplies for buildings in FY 2024. The governor recommends expenditures totaling $21.8 million, including $13 million SGF and 27 FTE positions in 2024 for the state fair. This is an all-funds decrease of $500,000, or 2.2%, and an SGF decrease of $750,000, or 5.5%, below the agency's revised estimate. The governor's recommendation does include 27 FTE positions, which is equal to the agency's 2024 estimate. The governor's recommendation includes following adjustments. Item number 9, supplemental requests that were not recommended. The governor does not recommend adoption of the following supplemental request. Governor does not recommend $300,000 SGF to upgrade lighting lighting at the State Fairgrounds in 2024. Instead, the governor recommends adoption of that request in FY 2025. When we turn over to page 9, the governor does not recommend adoption of 100,000 SGF to upgrade cameras for the State Fairgrounds in the current year in FY 2024. Instead, the governor recommends adoption of that request in FY 2025. The governor does not recommend adoption of 100,000 SGF to upgrade the administration building in 2024, and again, she recommends adoption of that request in FY 2025. And then item number 10, the governor does recommend $250,000, all from the State Fair Capital Improvement Fund, for grounds maintenance and upgrades to repair and replace HVA systems located at the Sunflower North and Sunflower South buildings at the State Fairgrounds in the current year, 2024. The governor's recommendation essentially deletes 250,000 SGF and adds the same amount, 250,000, from the State Fair Capital Improvement Fund for the same purpose in 2024. Mr. Chair, I can answer questions for FY 2024, or I can continue.
We might go ahead and see if there are questions regarding fiscal year 2024. Committee, do you have questions? Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate the presentation, and I'm understanding there's 3 projects that the governor is recommending not be funded this year, but instead of next year. Can you tell us anything, or would it be better to ask the agency what the bidding process timeline would be for that? Would they be able to set those projects, out for bid July 1st? I'm just looking at the September dates for the fair, and if we're going to spend the money, it'd be nice to have them done before the 2024 State Fair.
Mr. Chair, Senator, to answer the question, the procurement process can take some time depending on the length of the project, exactly what you're looking for, also whether or not there are contractors that can provide the service that you're looking for. However, when it comes to a specific timeline for these particular projects, I would defer to the agency for those. But like I say, the procurement process for the state can take a little bit of time depending upon the different factors that go into it, the different projects.
Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this information. You have 27 full-time positions. That'd probably be a better question for him, wouldn't it? I mean, with the fair that's last 10 days, 27 full-time positions, I'm just kind of curious. I know there's maintenance to do, administration. I don't know, it seems like a lot, but I'll ask Brian when he gets up here.
And Mr. Chair, Senator, as well, I can pull I don't have it with me now, but I can pull the 27 different job classifications that they are. Like you say, there could be some administration folks, groundskeepers and whatnot. I can pull a list and get that to the committee. But in regard to being able to answer the question right now, I'll have to get back with the committee on that.
I appreciate these questions because we're asking them, and the agency can address the questions when they make their presentation, most likely, hopefully. Senator McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, kind of organizational for me in my head. I kind of don't understand. I must be missing something. On number 2, it has lighting and cameras, but then we go over to number 4 and we add cameras again. Are they the same or different? I mean, why are they in 2 different categories?
Mr. Chair, Senator, on page 7, I showed item 2, lighting upgrades. And then on page 8, I see item 4, camera upgrades. The agency, when they submitted their their supplemental requests, they broke those 2 out. They did some for cameras and they did some for lights, as opposed to putting them together into one enhancement or supplemental. They split those 2 out.
Well, okay, but on number 2, it says to install lighting and cameras. So,
Mr. Chair, Senator, that we are still working from draft copies, and unfortunately that is a typo on my part. That can be deleted. This would just be for the lighting itself.
Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. I was wondering on page 9, number 10, this ground maintenance and upgrades, it says all from State Fair Capital Improvements Fund. How much is in the fund?
Mr. Chair, Senator, I cannot answer that question as of right now off the top of my head, but I can certainly pull that dollar figure and get that back to the committee.
Going back to the question that Senator Francisco asked about the additional lighting security, could this not piggyback on what they're already doing?
Mr. Chair, that's what the agency is wanting to do with these particular requests. The 2023 legislature approved the $600,000 in ARPA funds that rolled into 2024. So the agency's request would add additional lights and cameras over what was approved during the 2023 legislative session. So to answer your question, yes, these supplemental requests are intended to piggyback off of or enhance the ARPA funding that the agency received.
I guess my question is, if they are already doing some lighting, I wouldn't think the bid process would take that long to do just, well, we want additional lighting in this location. But we can ask the agency that. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'm understanding it's on the lighting and the cameras. It's written a little confusing, but I think it is right that you're saying, you're just referring back to the appropriation of $600,000 that was for both lighting and cameras. And then the supplemental request, one is for lighting, one is for cameras.
Mr. Chair, Senator, that is correct.
Back on page 7, you indicate the reappropriation for the Bison Arena renovations. Has that taken place, or is it in the process of taking place? Because it was from 23 originally, it's rolled into 24.
Mr. Chair, these monies have actually rolled over. I know they rolled over from 22 into 23 as well, and then again from 23 into 24. I'm not sure on when the money was initially appropriated. There is a little bit more detail when we get to the capital improvements section of my budget analysis. I will discuss those particular projects as well. So these are monies that have been appropriated for a number of fiscal years, and I can go back and check to see when it was first appropriated, but it did roll over at least twice to my knowledge.
All right, thank you. It just seems like if we've appropriated and the agency keeps rolling it, maybe they don't need it that bad. Seeing no further questions, go ahead and move forward with your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we turn over then to page 10, excuse me. This is an examination of the FY 2024 agency request as it compares to actual expenditures from FY 2023. The agency estimates revised expenditures of $22.3 million, including $13.8 million SGF in 24. That's an all funds increase of $13.6 million, or 154.6%, including an SGF increase of $12 million, or 687.7% above 2023 actual expenditures. As we discussed a little bit earlier, briefly, the primary reason for this increase is due to the reappropriated monies for capital improvement projects at the state fairgrounds. In particular, the $9 million for the Bison Arena and the $3 million for the state fair facility upgrades. Those projects for the facility upgrades do include some road repairs, adding air conditioning units to some buildings on the state fair that currently do not have air conditioning. And the SGF change in the agency's FY 2024 revised estimate from 2023 actual expenditures is also partially attributable to those $750,000 worth of SGF supplemental requests that we discussed as well. The remaining differences between 2023 actual expenditures and the agency's revised estimate is primarily to those security cameras and those lighting projects, along with the emergency command center in 2024 that did not occur in 2023. Those are estimated to be one-time expenditures, so we see those in FY 2024 and not in 2023, and they should not roll into 2025. And those projects are listed there as well, a total of $850,000, including the $600,000 for the security lights and cameras, and then the $250,000 for that emergency command center. When we turn over to page 11, there's an examination of the agency's FY 2025 request. This follows the same pattern as FY 2024, so that is the numbers on the left correspond with the narratives below. The agency requests $8 million, including $135,000 SGF for FY 2025. This is an all funds decrease of $14.3 million, or 64.2%, and an SGF decrease of $13.6 million, or 99% below the agency's revised estimate for FY 2024. The agency also requests 27 FTE positions for 25, and this is the same amount as the agency's 2024 estimate. The significant adjustments made by the agency include item number 1, SGF reappropriation. The agency carried over $12.9 million in unspent SGF monies from FY 2023 into FY 2024. The agency is estimating that those monies will be spent in FY 2024 and therefore will not carry over into FY 2025. Item number 2, the lighting upgrades. The agency's revised FY 2024 estimate had included that supplemental request of $300,000 from the SGF to upgrade lighting on the grounds of the State Fair. Those are estimated to be spent in FY 2024 one time and not carried over into 2025. Ground maintenance and upgrades, same as item number 2. The revised estimate in 2024 had included $250,000 SGF to replace some HVAC systems. The agency is estimating for those to be one-time expenditures in FY 2024 and not carrying those into 2025. The camera upgrades as well, item number 4. In 2024, the agency had requested $100,000 SGF to upgrade cameras at the State Fairgrounds. Those were, again, one-time monies to be spent in FY 2024, not carrying over into 2025. Item number 5, the administration building upgrades, same as the last 3 items as discussed. That supplemental request of $100,000 SGF to do upgrades on the administration building are estimated to be one time in FY 2024 and not carried over into 2025. When we turn over to page 12, item 6, the ARPA lights and cameras project. The agency's revised estimate included that $600,000 in ARPA funds to install security lights and cameras. Again, one-time expenditures that are not estimated to carry over into 25. And then item 7, that ARPA Emergency Command Center is one-time monies for that mobile command center in 2024 that are not estimated to carry over into 2025. The governor is recommending total expenditures of $8.5 million, and that includes $635,000 SGF and 27 FTE positions for FY 2025. The recommendation is an increase of $500,000, all SGF, or 6.3% above the agency's request for FY 2025. And the governor's recommendation does include 27 FTE positions, which is equal to the agency's request. As briefly discussed in FY 2024 analysis, the governor's recommendation includes the following adjustments. Item 8, the lighting upgrades. The governor is recommending $300,000 SGF to upgrade lighting on the State Fairgrounds in 2024. That recommendation moves the request from the current year 2024 into the budget year of 2025. Item 9, camera upgrades. Governor recommends $100,000 SGF to upgrade cameras on the State Fairgrounds in 2024. Again, that recommendation moves the money from FY 2024 to FY 2025. And the same thing for the item 10, administration building upgrades. The governor recommends $100,000 SGF to upgrade the administration building located at the State Fairgrounds in FY 2025. And again, that moves it from 24 to 25. Mr. Chair, I can stand for questions, or I can talk about the agency's capital improvement request.
I would ask you to go ahead with the capital improvements.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to mention, though, page 13 is a side-by-side of agency supplemental and enhancement request, what the agency requested and what the governor is recommending for both FY 2024 and FY 2025. In addition to that, there is some narrative there as well. Again, same format as 2024 and 2025 analysis. That is to say that the left-hand side numbers correspond with the narratives below. When we turn over to page 15, I'll also draw attention for the committee to page 15, which is just a program overview, shows actual expenditures along with agency requests and governor recommendations for the current year and the budget year, along with FTE positions by program. And then in addition to that, there is some more detail specifically about administration facilities, management, debt service for these particular program areas as well. However, on the back page is page page 20, excuse me, which is the agency's capital improvement projects. I do want to mention, Mr. Chair, that the capital improvement projects were heard in the Joint Building Committee last week, and the Joint Building Committee does recommend or does concur with the governor's recommendations for these, and I will go through these. The agency is estimating revised capital improvement expenditures of $14.4 million, including $12.9 million SGF and FY 2024. That is an all funds increase of roughly $760,000 or 5.6% above the agency's approved amount. That increase is mostly attributable to that $600,000 in ARPA funding for security lights and cameras on the state fairgrounds. That funding, again, was approved by the 2023 legislature and was transferred to the agency at the end of the fiscal year in 2023 and then rolled and added to the agency's 2024 revised estimate. The increase is also partially attributable for some estimated increases in expenditures for ongoing maintenance at the state fairgrounds. As you all know, the state fairgrounds in Hutchinson is, I forget exactly how many acres it is, but they do have a number of roads, buildings, and whatnot, and the agency is estimating some increased expenditures for ongoing maintenance on the grounds of the state fair. The governor does concur with the agency's FY 2024 revised estimate for capital improvement projects. For 2025, the agency is requesting capital improvement project expenditures totaling roughly $940,000, all from special revenue funds. For FY 2025, that is a decrease of $13.5 million below the 2024 revised estimate. That decrease is entirely attributable to projects being completed in FY 2024 that will not be carried over to 2025, as mentioned earlier. The decreases are also partially offset by, again, some increased estimates for ongoing maintenance at the state fairgrounds. The governor does concur with the agency's FY 2025 request. And then, Mr. Chair, I would like to note as well, on the top page, or the top table there, does indicate those different buckets of capital improvement project expenditures. You will see then the Bison Arena renovation and the state fairgrounds facility upgrades. You had asked, Mr. Chair, whether or not some monies had been spent. According to the budget numbers that we have, no monies were spent on the Bison Arena renovation in 2023, while $960,000 were spent on state fair facility upgrades in 2023. And those monies did reappropriate into 2024, and the agency is estimating for those to be expended in the current year, and therefore you do not see that carrying over into 2025. Same thing with the lights and cameras projects, which are ARPA's monies. Those are to be spent in 2024 and will not carry over to 2025. And Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to stand for any more questions the committee may have, or like I say, Brian Schultz, the general manager of the State Fair, is here as well, and he will be able to address the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Drury. Questions, Senator Fagg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 20, it talks about all from special revenue funds with an S. Can you give me an example of what special revenue funds we're talking about?
Mr. Chair, Senator, that would actually all be from, and that should likely be updated again, draft copy, that would be from the State Fair Capital Improvement Fund. This is one of those agencies that has an operating fund and a capital improvements fund. They do receive some SGF from time to time and for general maintenance as well. But that would be from the State Fair Capital Improvement Fund, to answer your question.
Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I serve on the 911 Next Generation Committee, so I'm interested in the Emergency Command Center, how it might be working with the public service answering point that's in Hutchinson. Would there be any additional employees needed once we have that operations center? And also understand that the 911 Council is authorizing a mobile emergency command center. I can't imagine any better place to store that during the state fair than on the state fair grounds. So this might also be the agency, but I don't know if there's any FTE connected with that.
Mr. Chair, Senator, to answer the question, there is no increase in FTE requested by the agency for this particular project. In regard to how the operations of the command center will work, I would defer to the agency on that, but no FTE increase is associated with this particular project.
Speaking of FTEs, on page 16, you've got a box there that shows FTE positions of 17 in the administration financing. These 17 are a part of the 27 that Senator Dahl asked about, or are these in addition to the 27?
Mr. Chair, this is the total 27. So this breaks it down then by the programs that these FTEs are budgeted within. So 17 FTEs, full-time equivalents in the administration program, and then 10 in the facilities management program. Again, this is a little bit more detail than what is provided in the 2024-2025 analysis, yet, and I can still pull those individual job classifications that are approved as well for the committee, but this is by program.
That would be beneficial to have. And I'm going to guess you probably see a typo there in that box as well on the very far right, that $50 million figure, or then a 0% underneath of that in the red lettering, at least on my copy.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's, we cannot divide by zero, yet with our formulas that are in there, it does come across a little bit wonky, and so you are right about that. That would be a typo.
That's fine. I understand we all make mistakes. Further questions of our Fiscal Analyst Committee? We do need to keep moving as much as possible. Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you have any idea why we pushed a lot of this 2024 stuff into 2025 by the governor on these three items?
Mr. Chair, Senator, I cannot speak to the mind of the governor, just that those were requested by the agency in FY 2024, recommended by the governor, but in the budget year as opposed to the current year. But I cannot speak as to why that was done.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr. Dre. We will hear from the agency.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Kansas State Fair. We do have a PowerPoint presentation, but we've got 53 slides, and we're going to be more interested in answers to our budget questions as much as possible.
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, if you'd rather, I could talk off the questions.
That would.
And then if you have other questions, that kind of gives you an overview of all the things that happened at the Kansas State Fair this last year, our numbers for attendance and all that stuff, so we can just forego the PowerPoint and I can answer the questions.
That would be preferable.
Okay.
We didn't have the PowerPoint ahead of time, so wasn't planning on that at all. But yes, let's just jump into you answering any questions or providing information you believe beneficial to the committee.
Perfect. So the first question was about the procurement process. Currently, we have gone out and already done a bid on all the lighting and the cameras. The cameras have been completed within that first $300,000. Last year, when I was in front of you, we had asked for $600,000 for camera upgrades. We received $300,000. We have asked for an additional $100,000 to enhance the areas. So what we'd be doing there is basically using the same vendor that we've had and working with procurement on that. Same thing with the lighting. Lighting, we are at about $200,000 of the $300,000 has been already invested and implemented into the grounds. We just have a lot of different areas on the grounds that have the old metal halogen bulbs that are just very not cost effective. So that's why continuing to switch those into LED lights. So of that $600 that we received in ARPA funds, the camera portion is completed. The lights are almost completed.
And could the cameras and lighting be completed in fiscal year 24 rather than pushing them to fiscal year 25 to your way of thinking?
Mr. Chairman, if the funds are appropriated, absolutely. All we have to do is continue on with adding on the different cameras and getting the lights ordered and installed.
Do you have any answers for, like Senator Fagg's question, as to why it was delayed from 24 to 25?
I don't, Mr. Chairman. I don't know why the governor had moved it to that.
Okay, all right.
In question of the number of employees, we're at 27. As you saw, there's 17 in the administration office and 10 outside. The reason that we need 27, and I hope we don't have to go backwards on that, we do, in addition to the 10 days of the Kansas State Fair, we do about 550 other events on the grounds in like livestock shows, horse shows, quinceañeras, weddings, you name it, we've done it on the grounds. Some weekends we have up to 8 other events going on the grounds. So those people are very instrumental in making sure the day-to-day operations are taken care of.
I'm going to pause you here. We do have a couple senators with questions, Senator Straub and then Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Schultz, for your willingness to be here today and answer questions. So one of the questions I had you just answered was how many other events are held at the state fairgrounds? So you said approximately 550 other events throughout the year. And I wanted to point out something before I ask my next question. The state of Kansas appropriated, excuse me, I believe over $10 million to a privately owned Children's Mercy Park for a soccer competition that will be held there in the near future. And my concern with $12 million from State General Fund for our very own state fair is less of my concern that we're spending that much money, because it does showcase agriculture in Kansas and everything that Kansas is about. It also draws traffic and business to central Kansas. So I'm less concerned with the budget and more concerned with I know there was some discussion, or the board had made a decision on the racetrack, the dirt track, in I think late 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
And then late last year, it was decided not to demolish the track. Can you update us on any future plans for the track and what events may be held there to utilize that?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, Senator, yes, just to give you a little background on that, in November of 2022, the Kansas State Fair Board recommended that we would demolish the racetrack because it was only being used for 3 days a year. That's 18 acres of grounds that we could be used for other things on the grounds since we are landlocked. And this was put out to the racing community right after that. We had talked to the individual that runs the Hutch Nationals. The Hutch Nationals announced that this would be the last year of that event, which takes place in July. At that point in time, I think it was in May, there was a group formed, Save Our Track, that went out and wanted to make sure we kept the track because of the historic nature in their eyes. So that group got together. The attendance at the Hutch Nationals was fairly large this last year. However, that was because of the stating it was the last year. We started working with that organization and the board. We created an ad hoc committee, and that ad hoc committee put up a proposal. And Mr. Nightingale with the Mel Hamilton Ford Racing Group brought in a proposal to run the track roughly eight times a year, once a month starting in April, and would do the upgrades that are necessary. We have a one-year agreement that as of after this meeting, we will be presenting that proposal to Mr. Nightingale and try running it for 1 year like that.
Thank you. That is exactly what I needed to know, and I'm glad to see that the State Fair is partnering with some local businesses to help further the use of the track and the whole state fairgrounds. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Brian, for being here. Just for the heck of it, are you and her related? Okay, that is. But anyway, you have 500 and some events.
Yes, sir.
Other than the state fair. Do they pay an entry fee? They got to pay some type of fee in order to use those grounds?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, yes, there is a fee to use the rental fees. Those monies go back in to generate dollars to help offset the other expenses that we have on the grounds. such as, one of the questions was, what is approximate amount in the capital improvements fund? I believe right now it's at $750,000. Those funds traditionally have been to go back out and fix the facilities. If it's water heaters, or whatever it is, that's what those dollars are for. So any rental that we get on the grounds, that goes in and helps offset the expenses on that.
Can I go ahead?
Certainly.
Could you tell us approximately how much money that those 500 and some events bring in?
It's probably $2 million, depending on the event. I mean, a wedding quinceañera is probably $1,000 to use the facility. When we have big RV groups on the grounds, I mean, they can be there for anywhere from 2 days to 10 days. That might bring in a couple $1,000. So it just depends on the event. Cattle shows, whatever it is.
One last question, if I may. Do you share facilities and people with the city or the county of Hutchinson or Reno County?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, no, we don't. We use, all of our staff is just for the Kansas State Fair. We do also work with the Department of Corrections. They do bring in anywhere from, depending on the day, 12 to 24 residents to help us with turnovers in the livestock area, setups, teardowns, general maintenance on the grounds as well, because we only have 10 within our operations side.
Okay, so if we get blasted by a blizzard or something like that, just take care of your own, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. Continue. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the question on the Bison Arena, in your slide presentation, you will see your question is why it's taken so long. Just to get the architectural drawings put together and all of the inspections, the asbestos, all that kind of stuff has taken almost a year to get put together. The 100% drawings have been submitted. We're in the process right now of, we've got about 20 individuals we're talking about with fundraising for this event, and they are planning on starting the work here this spring for the exterior and interior, and our hopes and prayers are that it will be completed before the 2025 fair. So all this money, the $9.9 million will be expended yet this year. It's just a matter of getting the bills in.
That was a question, if it was encumbered. And
Yes.
It will be. And sometime, I apologize about your presentation. Looks like the slide presentation is very informative. We may have you back sometime if
I
you
appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
go through that.
To continue on, the command center, what this was is, if you're familiar with the Kansas State Fairgrounds, the old fire station, which was on the corner of 20th and Main, that was going to become our incident command center for the Kansas State Fair. Currently, when we have the 10 days of the Kansas State Fair, you have fire here, you have police here, you have ambulance here. They're not able to talk. We need one central location, so if anything would ever happen, we would have one building. We're able to tie in all the cameras and everything in there, so if we would have an active shooter or if we would have a weather situation, that would be a location for all this. The building was not to the standards that we needed, so it was tore down. We are working with the county as far as putting together an emergency command center for the county and the fair, possibly in that location. It's just a matter of, again, they're looking at their funding, we're looking at ours, and we've got the $250,000 to put towards that. And as far as we do sit on 275 acres on the grounds, so that is a lot of mowing and upgrades that Mr. Drury was talking about. The other question that was out there as far as other projects, the asphalt project is about 75% complete on the grounds. That was the $2.5 million. The company that we worked with got pulled out on a couple of other areas, and it was either too hot and then we got the cold weather. So we're hoping by end of spring, early summer, all the asphalt will be replaced on the grounds to fill out the rest of that monies.
Do you have any information before we have additional questions?
I'm open to additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I'm all full of questions today. You know, I had a whole weekend to rest up. My mind's just roaring to go. So, do you have any contracted labor?
No, sir.
So you don't ever have to contract labor?
No, Mr. Chairman, Senator, the only labor that we bring in would be our Department of Corrections residents. That's the only other.
For like that HAVAC that's part of the bid process, right? The money that's in there, because you probably don't have people that do that.
Mr. Senator, we do have an HVAC specialist on our grounds that does that. That's part of the 10. We do have a carpenter, an HVAC, and an electrician. So we're able to do a lot of that work ourselves. The fabrication of the air conditioning for the 4-H building and Oz Gallery, that was all hired out. But the installation of the, we're putting in air conditioning in the Pride of Kansas as well. We're able to do that ourselves.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, thank you.
Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a question and a follow-up, if I may. No question, the State Fair is a big asset to Kansas. And so when we talk economic development, my question is, what does the county or the city do to help with the fair? I think I asked that last year, and I just...
Mr. Chairman, Senator, we received no dollars from either the city nor the county. I have expressed that concern to both. The one agreement that we do have with the city of Hutchinson is we gave them a parcel of land on the east side of the fairgrounds. I believe it was back in '99, where the water treatment plant is. And in consideration for that, it was a $1 a year consideration. What they will do is they'll come in and they'll remove like the hay and straw from our bedding, and they'll do some street cleaning during fair time. Other than that, we received no dollars from either the city or the county.
Mr. Chairman. The other question I have, has there ever been any discussion on sales tax? You know, we talk about star bonds, where you take an area, you collect a sales tax. And my thought is maybe either on the fairgrounds during the fair that you pick up a half-cent sales tax, something that would be generated from the people that's coming, and hopefully some people from out of state. So just a thought that I think needs to have some, unless there's a reason for it that I don't know, or it needs to be citywide or countywide for a week kind of thing. So, because there's a lot of, and I say that for the weekend, you're talking about all the events that go on year-round. Maybe it's on the fairground year-round. So
Mr. Go ahead.
that would be one thought. And then going back to what Senator Straub said, maybe we need to consider that in the Kansas City area with all these people coming that's going to be from out of state to help pay for that. So just a thought. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, we do receive a portion of the sales tax during the 10 days of the Kansas State Fair, but that is just for the items sold on the grounds, as well as a percentage of the liquor tax that is sold on the grounds just for that time.
How much money is that?
Roughly $300,000, roughly. There is a sales tax as well that the county has, they have implemented, and the funds there go towards the Cosmosphere and Stratica and a couple other projects, but we don't receive any of that part of the sales tax, the overall sales tax.
Senator Reichman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I kind of piggyback what Senator Fagg had to say. As far as, do we have any idea about the economic driver? How much money goes to or helps the city of Hutchinson or that county? Has there been any kind of study on that? How much more income that comes in during those days when the fair is going on? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I believe back before I started in 21, there was an economic impact study that said roughly $100 million is generated because of the Kansas State Fair, and that was several years ago. We have not done an economic impact study on it in recent years.
Mr. Schultz, I certainly appreciate you appearing before the committee. I appreciate you working with the committee, providing answers. You've done a great job compared to a lot of individuals who appear before the committee, so I want to thank you personally for that. And unless you have anything additional that you feel that we need to add, we will look forward potentially to a PowerPoint in the future. But anything additional for the committee today?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Committee, thank you very much, and I would be honored to come up and give my presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you, and have a great day.
All right, committee, we will go ahead and move forward. We don't have very much time left for this meeting. We do plan on all week having budget hearings and recommendations. If we spend this much time on every single budget, we will not meet our deadline, but we'll continue moving forward. And so we will go to the Kansas Wildlife and Parks, and Mr. Drury, we'll let you go ahead and get started. We may not finish, but we'll start with fiscal year 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my name is Luke Drury, Senior Fiscal Analyst with the Kansas Legislative Research Department, going through the Department of Wildlife and Parks. On page number 1 is a general overview of the agency with a little bit of a description. They are a cabinet-level agency that administered by Secretary of Wildlife and Parks. The Secretary is appointed by the Governor and subject to confirmation by the Senate. The Kansas Wildlife and Parks Commission is a 7-member board appointed by the Governor, serves as an advisory role to the Secretary, and the Commission has the authority to approve the agency's rules and regulations. The Secretary of Wildlife and Parks and the Assistant Secretary of Administration are located in the Topeka administrative offices, while Assistant Secretary for Operations is located in Pratt. The agency is administered by staff both in Topeka and with field operations that are managed in Pratt. Mr. Chair, I'd like to begin on page number 5. On page 5 is a more detailed table of expenditures by category, along with different financing utilized by the department. This is one of those agencies that does utilize dozens of different funding streams, including the General Fund, EDIF, Economics Development Initiatives Fund, and the State Water Plan Fund, along with a litany of other fee and federal funds. On the bottom of page 5 is an examination of historical state general fund expenditures. From FY 2025 to FY 2029, from FY 2015 to FY 2019, the agency had no SGF expenditures. In 2020, the Governor had recommended and the Legislature approved $2 million for emergency park repairs after a spring 2019 flooding event. The agency expended $1 million of that amount in 2020 and an additional roughly $1 million of that in 2021. From 22 and 23, there were no SGF expenditures. For FY 2024, the current year, the Governor recommended and the 2023 Legislature approved $2.5 million SGF for one-time dam repairs. The agency's revised estimate makes no changes to the SGF amount that has been approved by the 2023 Legislature. And for FY 2025, the agency's request does include $200,000 from the General Fund as a state match to leverage federal funds to purchase a piece of property in Jewell County. The prospective land is adjacent to the current Lovewell Wildlife Management Area in Jewell County. When we turn over to page 6, in FY 2024, the Governor recommends increased SGF expenditures totaling $3.2 million from the General Fund as a state match for the Flint Hills Trail System and $200,000 SGF to replace a shower house at El Dorado State Park. For 2025, the Governor recommends the $200,000 SGF as a state match to leverage those federal funds. Mr. Chair, I will speak more about that as later on in the analysis. At the bottom of page 6 is the Parks Fee Fund. Similar to what you have seen with the State Fair, the left side or green is revenues, the right side or red are expenditures, and then the yellow line that transverses those are historical ending balances along with estimated ending balances for FY 2024 and 2025. The Parks Fee Fund is a depository for monies received from the state park permit fees, tolls, rentals, and other charges derived from the use, lease, or operation of state parks. The department establishes those fees for the use of the state parks by rules and regulations, which are then reviewed by the Commission. In FY 2024 and for FY 2025, expenditures are estimated to exceed revenues for the Parks Fee Fund. This will then in turn reduce the fund's ending balance to a little under or $77,000 for FY 2025. From FY 2021 to FY 2023, the Parks Fee Fund experienced average expenditures totaling about $12.8 million per year, while revenues to the Parks Fee Fund averaged $13.2 million per year. So that is to say that historical averages, revenues, and expenditures have been relatively close to one another. The agency's revised FY 2024 request from the Parks Fee Fund totals $16.2 million in expenditures. That is an increase of $3.4 million, or 26.9% above the agency's three-year average. On average, from FY 2021 to FY 2023, the Parks Fee Fund had receipted roughly $500,000 more into the fund than expended in that year. The governor's recommendation for expenditures from the fund does adjust expenditures for both fiscal years and further revises revenue estimates into the fund. The governor's recommendation reduces expenditures from the fund by roughly $900,000 or 5.6% in 2024 and $610,000 or 3.8% in FY 2025. The governor's recommendation also increases revenues to those funds to the fund by $150,000 in both fiscal year 2024 and 2025. And Mr. Chair, I will speak a little bit more about where those adjustments in expenditures are later on in the budget analysis. For now, if we turn over to page 7, there's an examination of another agency fee fund. As noted earlier, this agency does utilize a number of different funds, with Parks Fee Fund and Wildlife Fee Fund being some of the larger funds that the agency does utilize for both operations and for capital improvements. The major sources for receipts to the Wildlife Fee Fund were from the sale of hunting, fishing, and trapping licenses. The fees to be collected from the issuances of these licenses are established by the Commission through rules and regulations that are submitted by the Secretary. In FY 2024 and for FY 2025, expenditures are estimated to exceed revenues for the Wildlife Fee Fund. That will then in turn reduce ending balances that will lead to reducing ending balances moving forward. For the Wildlife Fee Fund from FY 2021 to FY 2023, expenditures averaged about $34.6 million per year, while revenues averaged $33.7 million per year. So, Mr. Chair, that is to say that from FY 2021 to 2023, on average, the agency has spent more than revenues that were brought in. The agency's revised FY 2024 request from the Wildlife Fee Fund totals $46.5 million in expenditures, which is an increase of $11.9 million, or 34.4% above the agency's three-year average. Over the last 3 years, on average, the agency has expended more monies than has been receipted into this fund. The governor's recommendation, similar to the Parks Fee Fund, adjusts expenditures from the Wildlife Fee Fund for both fiscal years and also revises revenue estimates for both fiscal years for this particular fund. The governor's recommendation reduces expenditures from the fund by $5 million, or 10.8% in FY 2024, and $2.4 million, or 5.4% for FY 2025. The governor's recommendation also increases revenue estimates by $3.8 million in 2024 and $6.7 million for FY 2025.
Will you be reaching a natural stopping point here in a minute or so?
Mr. Chair, I do believe this would be a good time to stop, as next moving forward would be an analysis of FY 2024. So I think that would be a good time.
All right. Well, we will, because of time's sake and committee, I will, just before we adjourn, bring your attention to the page 6 and page 7, the graphs, and you can see the ending balance, particularly on page 7 in the Wildlife Fee Fund. Not that long ago was nearly, well, it was $26 million in fiscal year 22, and it's dropped down by about $20 million, the ending balance. And then the Parks Fee Fund expenditures, also same thing. The balance, ending balance, has gone from $3.7 million in 23 down to less than $100,000. So there probably is something this committee needs to address. Not certain yet what it is, but for an agency to continue to spend significantly more than they bring in is not a good thing for us certainly to approve, and not for taxpayers. So I would urge you, since you have this, take a look at it. Tomorrow we will pick up with the Wildlife and Parks budget, and then we'll continue with the agenda. And of course, we'll have to send an amendment to the calendar for you to see. Is there anything additional for the good of the committee? Seeing none, we are adjourned.